This is Tiger Cats postgame on the Ticats Audio Network.
I saw that game going about a million different ways. None of them was like that. The Hamilton Tiger Cats on the wrong end of a lopsided score, 31-12. The Toronto Argonauts take the victory, take first place in the East, and will now host the East Final on December 5th, 1 week before the Grey Cup is held here at Tim Hortons Field. Louie B alongside Courtney Stevens sitting in for Andy Fantuz. And, I just kind of went to Twitter, and it was a mistake to go to Twitter.
I was going to say that.
But I just wanted to kind of sum up how I was feeling, and the best I could do was SpongeBob SquarePants drinking a coffee by himself, contemplating what we just saw. Court, where do you want to start? I mean, really, from the first quarter, the Ticats just unable to get anything going offensively.
Yeah, it looked like they came in with a game plan to really go for the jugular, and I don't know if it was just timing was off. I don't know if it was the different surface, the weather, but it just wasn't there. It wasn't clicking, and they weren't completing those passes. They had a few opportunities early, whether it was just a little bit overthrown or a drop pass or a missed look. They came out flat, and Argos didn't. They moved the ball. They got eventually into scoring range, and they scored. And obviously, whoever ends up with more points on the board wins the game.
Yeah, and the Argos, 31 points. RJ mentioned this, the most points the Ticats have allowed this season. And, a fitting end on the pick six. I was kind of hoping that he would have run out the last 2 seconds so that we wouldn't have had another kickoff, but that's not the way it works. And I see on our screens here that the Harold Ballard Cup is going back to Toronto for the first time since, I want to say 2013, 2014. But the Ticats lose the season series. They've now lost 3 times to the Argos, and they'll finish their season 1 week from tomorrow when they host the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And, man, has that game taken on a whole lot more importance, not just for winning it and controlling your own destiny and getting your own home playoff game, but just to go into the playoffs with some confidence. Because if this was week 15 and then you had to go into the playoffs next week, I expect this Ticats team to be able to bounce back. I expect this Ticats team to be able to move on from it quickly, but I need to see a better performance against Saskatchewan next week if I think that this team has Grey Cup aspirations.
Yeah, and I think what Toronto did was they laid out a blueprint on how you slow down this Ticat offense. I mean, without the presence of Don Jackson, they got away from the run game and stretching the ball down the field without any threat of anything underneath. You just sit back on them and let them throw the ball deep. Those are not high percentage passes. That's not what got Jeremiah Masoli 300 yards in the last few games. Not to say that they're bad calls, but, they're not high percentage. And if you live by that sword, you sometimes die by that sword.
Yeah, and we saw tonight our first 100-yard receiver in Tim White, who was just great yards after the catch tonight as well. He finished the game with 110 yards. And Jeremiah Masoli, the leading rusher, tied with Sean Thomas Arlington. Both had 37 yards on the ground. Lots coming up here on Ticats pregame. We'll have exclusive access to the coaching room when Coach O stops by. Julian Howsare is going to be here as well. He finished the game as the leading tackler for the Ticats with 9 tackles. We'll name our performer of the game. We'll have our post-game roundtable. Luke Tasker will be sliding into the booth. Bakari Grant will join us by phone, and we'll revisit Courtney's CarStar keys to victory. And I will not forget this week, because we have a pair of tickets to go see the Ticats take on the Rough Riders on Saturday, November 20th. So we'll make sure to do that. We'll give you the keyword coming up here in just a little bit. Yes, the Ticats kind of fought until the very end. And, there are some drops. There was some missed tackles. Let's give credit to the Argos special teams, especially on coverage. Boris Beattie was kicking the heck out of the ball, and the Argos special teams were getting there, not giving the Ticats anything. And when you start drives from your own 10, your own 15, it's hard to win football games.
Yeah, and they had a great opportunity to maybe get a couple of points. But again, we saw missed field goals for the Ticats. It's been a bane of their existence in other opportunities that they've had in past close games. This one didn't end up close, but it was close for a while. I mean, it was 14 points for most of the game, and that's just 2 scores in this league. And if you hit 2 field goals, it brings it down to 1 score. You got to give Boris Bede credit, man. This guy had a single. After the penalty on Jovan Santos Knox, they move up the kickoff. He hangs it up in the air so Ticats don't have a choice but to field it in the end zone and give up the single. Little things like that, even at the end of the game, punting out in the coffin corner, placing them at the 2-yard line. I mean, the guy is a threat, honestly, and he's not on offense, but he's creating offense. And so when you have a guy like that, give him credit. You got to build the blueprint to beat the Ticats. I think the Argos are laying it out there for the rest of the league to see.
If I were to vote on the Argos awards, and I just watched that game, the way it broke down, I mean, Boris Bede is in the conversation for MOP. I know it's ridiculous. I think he's a lock for Special Teams Player of the Year, especially in the East Division. I think he's going to be the East nominee for the award. But you mentioned it. It's not just that he's putting points on the board, whether it's singles, whether it's, 13 of 13 for field goals as of late, perfect 10 for 10, 50 yards or further. But it's what he does punting the ball, kitty cornering it on the 2-yard line. Every kickoff he gets, Coach had mentioned this, every kickoff he takes, your returner starting on the 4. Like that's hard to do in the NFL when the field is 10 yards shorter. Boris Bede's doing it in the Canadian Football League on a long field. I know we're spending a lot of time praising him. It's just because, listen, I'm going to be honest with you, radio listener. I don't know what to say. Like, I watch this team. Courtney, you can attest to this. I had to literally go 4 booths over to watch the game because of expletives that were coming out. I'm frustrated. I understand that fans are frustrated. This team's frustrated. And it's going to be how quickly can they put them behind this. Knowing the leadership they have and knowing the fact that, guys, our season isn't over. Anything but. Our season is just getting to where we need it to be. This was a step back. There's no denying that. But the Ticats took 2 giant steps forward in the previous 3-4 games. So yes, there's going to be people who are upset. Yes, there are going to be people who are on my Twitter timeline telling me, oh my God, you were so wrong about Masoli. Put Dane Evans in. People are going to ask Coach O that question this week. I guarantee it. Members of the media are going to ask Coach O, hey, who's your starting quarterback against Saskatchewan next week? And it shouldn't be a question, but he's going to be asked, and I cringe at the answer that the person who's going to ask that question is going to get. Well, because this game isn't on Masoli.
No, and that's why I of all the points I have written here, none of them question whether he's capable of winning games. Guys, like, do we have a short-term memory loss? Is something going on where we don't remember the last whole month of October? Let's just not even talk about that for a second. We can get back to it, but
for sure.
I want to point out where I think actually this game turned. I think that there was a few key moments. We had a penalty on special teams happen for the Ticats, and I think that was a momentum shifter. Maybe it wasn't fatal, but that was one where you're like, okay, guys, reel it in. Then follow that up with another penalty after a touchdown that has a player ejected, a key player, and that does something to the morale. Now you also have an explosive play right before that by Chandler Worthy, who sets up some points. And it's like the sequence of these little things, it's a little chip in the armor, a little chip in the armor, a little chip in the armor until it finally cracks. And then you have to look in the mirror and say, all right, which team are we going to be today? Are we going to be the team that shows up undisciplined and loses coverage lanes in punt team? Are we going to be the team that's taking shots on guys after the whistle and putting our group at jeopardy? Or are we going to buckle down and be disciplined and play Ticat football? And I think today what we saw was the Argos had a game plan. They stuck with it. The Ticats had a game plan. It didn't work, and they stuck with it.
Yep.
And they didn't adjust. And at the end of the day, this is the outcome that happened.
On punt returns, you mentioned Chandler Worthy. He averaged 15.6 yards per return. The Ticats between Banks and Ungerer returned one averages about 7.2, 7.3. So I mean that's those are those hidden yards, and you talked about it. I know Luke's going to talk about it when he joins us on those hidden yards. They come up and they get you, right? I mean that 25-yard penalty on the ejection. Boris Beattie did exactly what he needed to do. But I think we're going to go back to this. Yes, this game was not what the Ticats wanted. It was not what we were expecting. But they have another game left, and they control their own destiny. And here to discuss that, we bring in Coach O, exclusive access to the coaching room. Time to check in with Coach Steinauer, presented by Access Storage. And Coach, just touch on that point, is that, yes, this game obviously didn't go the way you wanted it to, but you still control your own destiny. Is that the message in the room right now?
No, because we're not gonna beat a lot of football teams playing like that. So the messaging is to look in the mirror. We got to play better in all three phases if we want to have a chance. Obviously, I do understand we do control our own destiny, and we'll address that at another time.
Hey, Coach O, in this game, you guys stretched the field a lot on some vertical passes. How much of the game plan was based on what you saw in the Argos, and how much of the game plan was based on not having a guy like Don Jackson in the backfield?
Yeah, well, we had our game plan was to come out and take our shots early. We felt like we were going to have an opportunity. We missed them, Courtney. That's the challenge, right? Normally, if you know how it is, if you connect on one or two of four, that's going to give you an opportunity, and we missed them. And obviously, Don, it's easy to point towards that he did give us a spark, but there was plenty of ball game left even after we missed those shots early to have a different outcome. But it didn't happen like that. And then 14 points isn't it's not too much to overcome a halftime deficit, even as poorly as we were playing. And just disappointing.
Do you feel like there were maybe like a few plays that kind of changed kind of the whole dynamics of the way the game was going? Courtney and I were talking about it. You talked about it earlier in the week, is that Beattie kicks the ball so well, you can't be taking penalties on special teams, and yet in that first half, 7 penalties for 60 yards. I feel like a lot of those, if they go the other way, it's a different story.
Yep, we're just if we're not going to be disciplined, and I'm talking about ones that aren't in the referee's hands, ones that we control. You got to eliminate those. And and the other thing is when they do score, he's gonna kick the ball down there, and so it really limits your return game. And so there's a lot of things that contributed to this, but we just flat out weren't good enough tonight.
Coach, I know there's obviously a lot of things that you could look at to correct, but a guy like Julian Howsare, I felt, was a bright spot. He was all over the field. He had a high motor, and I think he led the team in tackles. Just talk about what it's like to have a guy like that who, regardless of what the scoreboard says, he makes it a point to go out there and lay his heart on the line.
Yeah, and it's nice that he showed up in the stat column, and I think that's what I'm most proud of, and why we're going to have an opportunity to still achieve our ultimate goal. Is I think we have a room filled full of Julian Howsare. So I think they play hard, whether it's an extra point on the punt team. I don't think that it's a lack of effort. You can always point to some isolated things, but overall, I don't see it as a lack of effort. I see it definitely as a lack of execution. But Julian Howsare is, however many times his name was called, he's very deserving. But we got to get more Howsares all playing that way at the same time.
Coach, appreciate you checking in with us. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
That is Coach O, and exclusive access to the coaching room presented by Access Storage. And he's not going to sugarcoat it. All aspects of the game, offense, defense, special teams, the Ticats were outplayed.
I mean, it's a performance business, so you just got to be able to accept that fact. You get the glory, you also get the scrutiny and the criticism. But, hey, look, guys, let's be honest. It's still 1 week left in the season, so it stings. And if it didn't sting, there'd be a problem, right? There's a team with an expectation because we've seen how good they can be, and that's why everybody's upset. So let it burn. I feel like that fuels what you see on the field the next week, they're going to get back to work. They're going to have opportunities to find improvement places, whether that be, hey, guys, let's add some RPO into the game plan so that the defense isn't just sitting back in umbrella coverage. Maybe that's something we see next week. Tommy Condell's a vet in this league, too. He knows how to change up the game plan, and he knows what he just put on film. So heading into the next game, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit of a mix-up from what the offense throws. And if there's not an emphasis on discipline, meaning stay in your lane, don't mess up, and don't lose your cool, I feel like that's what you see in the next game against Saskatchewan.
Is there something to be said about getting punched in the mouth this late in the season, like the Ticats? Like, it's one thing like week 1, week 2, we can talk about it. The Ticats are learning lessons. It's better to learn it now than it is, in the playoffs. Is there something to be said about, man, this was a wake-up call? Yeah, you cruise through the last 3 weeks against other opponents. Something we'll discuss in a little bit. And in fact, maybe it's the first question for our next guest, because now we go down to the locker room and connect with Julian Howsare. This exclusive post-game interview presented by Access Storage. Julian, is there something to be said about, dealing with adversity this late in the season after a tough loss like that to get back in the film room and shake it off?
You just learn from it. You move on. You learn from the mistakes. You watch the film. You evaluate, and then you move on. We're not gonna dwell on it, and we're just gonna keep moving forward.
Sorry, we lost you there for a second, Julian. Like you said, you got one more game. Do you control your own destiny at this point? Is that something you can kind of look at this week and make it a little bit easier to put this game behind you and focus on Saskatchewan?
Yeah, you just take it one game at a time. We know what's in front of us and we know what's at stake, so we just got to go out and play what we, do what we do. Just don't overthink anything and don't dwell on this game. Just keep pushing forward.
Hey, Julian, every play you line up, you got to give max effort, especially on that D-line. So playing against a team that does so much quick game, they got that RPO, doing different things to slow down a D-lineman. What's it like preparing for a team or offense like that, which obviously doesn't let you get to the quarterback? What's your mindset like as a pass rusher, as a D-lineman against a team that goes so quick?
As a pass rusher, when they're trying to do that stuff, you just got to, one, just keep rushing because you're eventually going to get home. They're eventually going to hold on to the ball. And two, you just got to get hands up, try to knock down balls, disrupt the game that way. And then three is just retrace and, get down the field and try to make a tackle.
Julian, thanks for joining us tonight. Appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. My pleasure.
That's Julian Howsare, exclusive post-game interview presented by Access Storage. All right, still ahead, we'll have our post-game roundtable. Luke Tasker and Bakari Grant will be joining us. We'll revisit our CarStar keys to victory. And, hey, because I forgot last week, why don't I remember now and give away a pair of gold seats to see the Ticats take on the Rough Riders on Saturday, November the 20th. Send us an email at gameday@ticats.ca. That's gameday@ticats.ca. Put the keywords Chuck Ely in the subject line. Tell us your name and the city in which you live inside the email. It's that simple. And to allow those who are listening live on the stream as well as in podcast form to enter, the entry deadline is noon on Sunday, November 14th, and we'll randomly pick from all the entries. So good luck. Chuck Ely is the subject line, your name, the city in which you live, gameday@ticats.ca. That's gameday@ticats.ca. All right, Court, let's name our performer of the game before we bring in Luke and Bakari. Performer of the game presented by Hercules Tires. Ride on our strength. Really, he made it easy on us. Whether it was his second effort, whether he was breaking tackles, or whether it was the play right to the very end. Tim White finished the game with 5 catches, 110 yards, including a 50-yard catch and run. He looked good out there.
Man, you got to give it up. That guy was making athletic plays and really selling out for the team. There's some opportunities when you catch the ball near the sideline to just let your momentum carry you, go out, reset, get the next play. This guy, he gave his toenails no love. He just stuck his feet in the ground, cut back, fought for those extra yards. The game might have been close to out of reach at that point, but when you have a certain level of pride, it doesn't matter what the scoreboard says. You just make your best play every time. I thought he did a great job of doing that on multiple occasions. So well-deserved first 100-yard receiver for the Ticats. Tim White.
Another, again, it's one of those games you think of what could have been for a guy like Speedy. He was targeted 9 times. He had 5 catches for 82 yards. A couple of ones that were just out of his reach. They're public enemy number 1 at BMO Field is that right upright in the end zone, because it has gotten us a couple of times here. Banks was behind the coverage in the end zone, and then doink. Jalen Acklin again. There were catches early on, whether it looked like maybe players were whether Jeremiah was hit as he threw, or and we'll talk about this with Luke in a second, but just on the grass versus the turf and the wet and the in the rain. I know Don Jackson had mentioned it earlier this week. At one point, coach was kind of praying for rain this week at practice so they could kind of get used to the elements. Anyway, all right, let's get to our CarStar keys to victory. Let's revisit them. Ticats not victorious, probably because they didn't listen to our CarStar keys to victory. But Court, what'd you have for number 1?
The first key to victory was to protect the pocket. And to be quite honest, I don't think they gave up a sack until the third quarter. So it was a combination of what I thought was actually really good protection and Jeremiah's pocket presence, which is something to point out as a highlight, I believe. He had some great evasion tactics. He was moving his feet, keeping his eyes downfield, ready to distribute the ball as he was moving. But they're calling really long passing plays. It's play action, is deep. The routes are 20, 25 yards. They take a while to develop. Eventually, you're going to get sacked.
It seems like early on in the season, it looked like they were going for passes that were too short. They were going for 5-yard kind of draws or 5-yard hitches, and now they're going for plays that are too deep. They got to find that nice middle that we've yet to find from the Ticats passing game. Coach admitted it. They had a game plan. They were going to go deep. They wanted to take their shots. And to your point, the offensive line just gave up 2 sacks. Jeremiah did a great job of evading some other pressure or creating some stuff with his feet. That pass to Brandon Banks comes to mind, and a great catch by Speedy B to get the first down. But, the Ticats did an okay job, but didn't do well enough, though, for number 1. What'd you have for number 2?
Number 2 was finish in the end zone, and I thought it was going to be a case of them moving the rock, and then maybe they get on the edge of field goal range, and is it something where they end up punting? Is it something where they kick a field goal? Or can they get down in the red zone and punch that thing in? They didn't even get a sniff. And the chances that they had, 3 field goals, they only hit 1. That's not really going to cut it versus many teams. So no, I wouldn't say that they finished in the end zone on this one. It wasn't really that many opportunities for them to score. Yeah,
Ticats made it to the red zone 3 times, but scoring just once. Their second down efficiency, 9-20, not terrible, 45%, but you got to be a little bit better, holding the Argos to 48%. But again, just timely plays for this Ticats team that really cost them. So, yeah, didn't do a great job on that one. What did you have for number 3?
Number 3 was no donations, and I think they gave up some free ones. Obviously, there was a pick 6 at the end. The game was really already over at that point in time, but they gave up a free play in sacrificing their starting middle linebacker, and I think that's the donation of all donations, because then you got to shuffle the roster. There's only so many people who can step in and fill that void, especially at such a crucial central position that's, calling shots and directing traffic back there for that front, that D-line. And then they had a couple of penalties and a couple of missed assignments on the punts. You may have a job where it's just stay outside and force everybody into the middle of the crowd. And if you poke your nose in the wrong section, if you cross over to the inside of that responsibility, you're exposing all the players to a big play. And I think there was a couple of those on the punt team. Those are donations. They gave up a couple easy ones. So I would say that they didn't handle the third.
I'm glad you included penalties in that, because yes, there were a lot of times that the Ternowski that was just hustle. Ternowski's running, from all the way to try and get that guy at tackle out of bounds. He takes 1 step out of bounds. There are going to be plays that the Ticats look at. There's going to be that Jovan Santos Knox ejection. Did the Argos player sell it pretty well? Yeah, I agree. But, you're putting yourself in a situation where you're throwing your elbow and, it makes contact. I guess the ref was looking very closely at that one. But, all right, yeah, the Ticats on the wrong end of this one, 31-12, the final. The Toronto Argonauts clinch. And here's something I want to throw at you, because the Argos play Week 16 on Tuesday. They host the East Final on December 5th. The Argos will go 26 days without playing a game. Is that an advantage?
I think so. I think at this point of the year it is, because no matter if it's a 14-game season or 18-game season, at this point of the year, people are beat up. There's never enough bye weeks for you to get truly healthy, and especially in a league where, every quarterback is hurting and pushing through, and now they really just got two horses in the race with McLeod Bethel-Thompson and Pipkin. Maybe they're not on the injured report, but those guys are hurting, and you need all your horses ready to go. Of course, they also got guys who are coming off IR, like Eric Rogers, Juwan Breskinson fresh off the IR. So those are guys who are going to get some chance to mend up. So I think it is an advantage to get those days off. We
know the rules without you can't practice with pads, though. I mean, so you're going 25 days without throwing your pads on? Is that going to throw you off a little?
Not me. I mean, if it was up to me, I would never put a helmet or shoulder pads on, and I would just walk through everything. But that's the mindset of an old player, because, shoot, I know how to tackle by now. I know what a block feels like. All I have to do is know where to be. But that's just somebody who has the experience. Maybe if you got a lot of younger guys, you want to develop them. It's somewhat like it is in college, where the young guys put on pads and they go full speed. And if you're a senior, well, you might just stand back and watch. So I think that's what you do during the bye week. You let the younger guys get bonus reps just in case someone turns an ankle and they got to step in.
All right, we're trying to connect with Bakari Grant, but in the meantime, let's bring in Luke Tasker for our post-game roundtable. And I think we have Bakari there. Yes, okay, Bakari Grant is with us. Bakari, we'll give you the first word here. Your thoughts on what you saw tonight.
Excited, man. It's funny, it's easy to look at this game and get down about it, but it's some exciting times. And you see the rain coming down. I don't know about you guys. It's probably a little cold up there in California. It's nice, about 67 degrees. And, I had a nice, beautiful day today. But when that cold weather hits, it's playoff time. And games like this, Courtney, tell me if I'm wrong. You go in a game like this, you come out, you win, 30-plus points, and you played this team for the fourth time. It's going to be a good night. We're going out, we're celebrating. You're going to show up at practice. Everybody's in a good mood. But you lose a game like this, and we have tons of teach tape. Now, think about this. Louie, like you said, on December 5th, we're going to have an Easter final. And all intents in my mind is that Ticats are going to be there. We got to do a lot of work to get there, first off. And here's where it counts. I don't care how many times we play in the season. I don't care how many times we win in the season. But it's a one game, winner takes all, in the Eastern Final, and then the Grey Cup, and in any playoff scenario. So I think this is awesome to go back, look at the tape. There's a ton of penalties. There's a ton of missed connections. And that's all great to build on coming into this time of the year, and it's an exciting time of the year, man.
I'm going to give Luke Tasker the next word here, because excited probably was not the word you were thinking Bakari was going to come out here with. Look, Bakari, did you love the classroom, or did you love being yelled at by your coaches? Because I feel like that's what the meeting rooms are going to be like this week.
Bakari,
absolutely.
I absolutely love you, man. You're a legend for all time. I hope we should just pipe in Bakari's message into the locker room right now. Just positive vibes everywhere. Hey, there's, you know what though? To your point, they're in the playoffs. The track is still laid out ahead of them, but there is just no denying Toronto just made their path to the Grey Cup so much easier. And Hamilton's is a little longer. That was and it was not the same team that we've seen for the last 3 weeks, last 4 weeks even. And Hamilton has to kind of get that train back on the track there, offensively especially.
And Court, to that point, I mean, what I said earlier was that it was 2 steps forward earlier this week. It was 1 step back tonight. That being said, I mean, I felt like this was a game that the Argos were almost more desperate to win. And maybe desperate wasn't the right word, but the Argos have had to listen to me all week. They haven't been listening to me, but all week I've been asking, like, are the Argos for real, right? That's been my question, is are the Argos for real? And I'm not the only one asking that. I feel like they answered a lot of critics tonight with a solid performance against a good Ticats team saying, yeah, you know what? This team's not a fluke.
I mean, that was a legit question. Were they for real? On paper, it didn't look for real. Like, you got to be honest. But, you know, you are who you put on tape, and they put it on tape tonight. They showed up, and you can't deny that a win is a win. And like they say, you know, it could be beautiful, it could be ugly, it could be rainy, it could be cold, it could be whatever. I know BG loved to play with those sleeves on no matter what. If it was hot, if it was cold, he's out there just embracing it, making snow angels and stuff. So that's the kind of attitude that they brought today. It was like, it's raining? Okay, cool. We're going to play under the rain, and we're going to love it, and we're going to ball. And, I mean, they came out with the win like they loved that atmosphere.
Hey, BG, one of the bright spots for the Ticats tonight was Tim White, and this guy just seems to be getting better and better. His awareness on the field, you know, his ability to evade tackles. We saw his speed. What do you see when you look at a guy like Tim White, who's got a resume of, you know, 12 CFL games? I mean, I feel like this guy's got some real potential to be a star in this league.
Absolutely. I think one of the toughest parts, and this was a big mantra of Montreal when I first came into the league, when they were coming off of 3 Grey Cup wins in 4 years, was it's 57-3. And when you saw Tim White early in the game, it looked like he was, you know, struggling with a little bit of pain. And we all know at this time of year, everybody's nicked up a little bit. But when you come back in the fourth quarter and you're able to make big plays and attack the ball and still be persistent about the way that you play the offense, that's huge. That's the maturity, you know, of the CFL, is that it's a long season. And granted, we're only 14 games this season, but that's still a lot of games. And especially when you're on that big field running around and, you know, the roster size being what it is, you know, for guys like that to step up, that's why I get excited. You know, I watch the minor things in the game that show big potential in the future. And when you look at Tommy Condell's game planning, we all in this room, Tasker, you can speak to this too. Tommy doesn't pull back if it's raining. We're throwing the ball, that's the game plan, then we're throwing the ball. So,
yeah,
you know, right. to see them take those shots early in the game, that stuff excites me because there was opportunities there. It wasn't that, you know, we weren't beating guys deep or the ball wasn't getting out or we didn't have the line protecting. It was some minor shifts into that offensive game plan where, you know, if the weather's a little bit better or if the ball, you know, has a little bit more flow to it, then we connect on some of those things. And those are huge plays. I mean, there's 3 or 4 plays in the first half that could have completely changed the landscape of this game. So, you know, I'm excited. I don't know. I don't know if it's the optimism. I don't know if it's the optimism or if it's the ability to say at this time of the year you need hard criticism. You don't need soft weeks. Yeah. You know, it's coming down to crunch time, and you know the ability to now build going into the playoffs and carry some of that momentum. Like you said, Louie B, 25 days off. Court, I'm sorry, I don't think it's an advantage. You know me, I'm a physical player. If I get my hands on you week to week to week, it builds up versus if I'm able to take 2 weeks off, I'm going to have to get back into that groove a little bit.
Yeah, BG, let me ask you this. There was a lot of opportunities for a 50-50 ball downfield, and I think it really showed us what type of receivers that they got in Hamilton. They got speed guys who separate, guys who run routes and get open in space, but I'm not sure we got somebody who goes up, climbs the ladder, and grabs the ball at its highest point. Is that something that you saw in this game where it was really that it's not a jump ball type team? This is more of a speed and separation team. That's something I noticed. Did you see that?
I definitely know that the skill set we have right now is speed. But things like when you see Tim White go up and break up a pass on those deep balls, those type of things mean something to me as a receiver. Because, you know, if the ball's overthrown or it's underthrown, you could always kind of let it flow and let guys get picks and things like that. But to go up and make a play on the ball to defend Masoli in those situations, I think they did a great job. Now, what I think has to happen as we move forward is you don't know what the weather is going to be like going into, deep November, early December. Is we can get rain, it could be snow, and we can't use that as an excuse. We have to be able to, one, game plan, and then two, like you said, make up on some of those plays where, hey, if your quarterback trusts you, I need you to go up and make a play. So I think it's a little bit of a balance, but we definitely have some speed, and you saw it in the first half, just running by guys. So that's scary. If we start connecting on those, that's scary going into the playoffs.
Bakari, I just saw tonight the best wide receiver protection pickup by Tim White since Bakari Grant wore a Ticat jersey. That was Bakari Grant-esque. There was a twist with the Sam and the defensive end, and Tim White stepped inside of the pocket and picked up the inside blitzer and did it masterfully. Jeremiah Mazzoli completed a pass to, I think it was Speedy B downfield, but Tim White, I'm talking, stood up. I think it was Chris Edwards, the Sam linebacker for the Toronto Argonauts, in a very Bakari Grant fashion. I know you were proud of our boy.
Hey, I'm always proud of the block pickups. I mean, it was something I prided my career on, is that, if you got me in there protecting, I don't care if it's a linebacker, a defensive end, a safety, it's going to be some contact.
Oh yeah,
and I like
you
it.
were the best at it, man. You were the guaranteed guy in the position. That was.
And we've seen Tim White do that before. We've seen him pick up blitz. His football IQ, like, we're talking about what he can do with the football, but what he does away from the football and when the play's not coming to him is something to definitely be excited about for Ticats fans. Mazzoli, obviously, he still throws for over 300 yards. Courtney, this wasn't the game we thought he'd have. He does throw the 2 interceptions, including the pick 6. I mean, there should be no question. It's still going to come up this week, but Luke, there should be no question that Jeremiah Mazzoli is the quarterback of this team.
Yeah, and there will be a question. That's been a story that people have loved to talk about all year. I do think, and I think Coach O has been somewhat open about this, there are plays in their playbook for Dane Evans each week. Yeah. I think that they are holding that as an option when they go on the field, regardless of Jeremiah's play or regardless of the flow of the game. We didn't see it happen tonight. Dane came in for the touchdown, of course, but just the sneak. But no, I think that would be.
Week 16.
Right. I think that would be inadvisable to do that. I think Jeremiah Mazzoli, yes, tonight there was not a great rhythm with the offense tonight. It took until late in the third quarter to get any sort of momentum or rhythm offensively. But they were taking shots downfield, and that's not, Jeremiah's not calling the plays. They were calling what is just in the football world, it's a low probability throw. The further downfield you're throwing the ball, the lower the probability of the catch. And they were trying to take a shot, and it was aggressive, and I don't have a problem with that. I like the fact that they were going aggressive. Aggressive play calling has worked for them in the last month of football. Point is, it's not all on Jeremiah, and at the end of the game, that pick 6, to be honest, who cares?
Yeah.
We are trying to force it now. And my whole thing is about a starting quarterback. Don't go out there and force in the game. Take what you can get. But when you're down by 12 points for 30 seconds left, force it.
Yeah. So BG, what's said in the locker room after? Like you said, you're excited. Like your guys got their head down. Guys putting their headphones, don't want to talk to anybody. You're going up to them, hitting in the chest, getting them all pumped up. But I mean, how do you move on from a loss like this? You're either going back home, you're taking the bus back here, or like how do you move on? How do you get past this one?
Hey, let's not get this messed up. As a player, I was pissed off. I'm not pumping anybody in the chest. I'm not excited. I'm pissed off. But what happens is, and my perspective, of course, is from an outsider, from more of a coach's perspective, meaning there's opportunity for growth. But as far as internally, there needs to be some reflection. There are way too many penalties in the first half. There are way too many missed opportunities throughout the game. But as a coach, from my perspective, what's exciting is that, be hard on yourself. Go watch the film. See what you did wrong. See what you need to correct. But don't think this is the end of the world. Don't think that they're such a superior team that we can't come back and on December 5th and kick their butt. But go correct yourself. Go look at the film. Go be very, meticulous about how can you better benefit this team. And that, to me, is the mood right now. That should be the mood for every team going into the playoffs in the CFL. Any day, any team can win a game. So what you need to do, win, loss, or draw, is go back to the drawing board, see what you did well, see what you didn't do well, correct it, and get ready for the next game. And I think that there's just more opportunity for that in a loss, especially when you play the team 4 times. I mean, there's no secrets. You know, Chris and Rick, they called a perfect game, so to speak, on defense, meaning they did some confusing things. They dropped back at the right times. They blitzed at some great times in the game, and it was a defensive game. And same thing on Hamilton's side is we called a great defensive game. And what I would say, you know, on the field and even leading the game to some of the offensive guys, hey, we got to get our guys off the field. Yeah. You know, we got to put some long drives together. Even if we're not putting up 6 points, we got to keep them off the field so they can stay fresh. So I think it's the same story as going into playoffs. Hey, I love the CFL for this reason, is that any day, anytime, any team can win. So you got to come prepared come this time of the year. And like Courtney said, it's a mentality. Rain, snow, cold, hot, long sleeves, 100-degree weather, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
because we're here to play.
Yeah, we didn't talk about it, but, I mean, Rich Stubler, Chris Jones, two, I mean, defensive geniuses in the CFL, and the two of them together, obviously giving the Ticats all sorts of headaches on offense. Ticats on offense, Argos on defense. To Bakari's point here about adversity and learning from this, Luke, last year, I mean, your injuries aside in 2019, 15-3, the games were close, but everything was clicking. Like, things were always going your way, right? And for the Ticats, it doesn't usually go that way. It is, you got to fight, you got to grind. Is there something to be said about having to face, whether it's losing by 1 to the Argos or losing by 19 to the Argos? Are there things you can take the adversity from this game and move forward with it?
Yeah, and I was kind of impressed with Julian Howsare's interview there. I mean, you know, he and every you can't just put an individual's reaction and sort of assign that to the team, but you know, these guys, there's been sort of a positivity that they've sort of labeled themselves with throughout the season, even early on when they had a losing record from the start, when they were losing games and that really weren't very pretty and it looked kind of bad. You know, they've been cohesive. That's what the identity has been, and so. Yeah, I think it's going to be hard because the reality of it is, and there's no getting around it, it just got a lot harder for you to win this Grey Cup. It really did, and that's just the reality of it. But now, like Bakari's saying, you learn from tonight, and there is a lot of things to learn from and to change, and then you go and you play your best football game against Sask and you try to make this happen to get a home game in the playoffs. To Bakari's point, some of the mistakes in this game, some of the misses were just slight edges, just a little bit too much on the throw, just a little bit of a sort of a miscommunication, or just they were on different pages between the receiving group and Soli. Just these slight things. Early in the season, the losses were sort of chaotic. It was sort of like not even close to being a winning team, right? Tonight that first quarter could have been filled with explosive pass plays with just slight changes. So you go back and you realize that, and you talk about that, and you build that into how you learn, and saying that we're right there. We just got to get those little things right.
Bakari, final thoughts on this one. Where do the Ticats go from here?
I think the final thoughts. Again, it's playoff time. It's playoff football. You know, it's getting cold. It's my favorite time of the year. You start waking up and having to practice in this stuff, and you know it's time to get into attack mode. And again, I think that's part of the excitement. Is this can be one of those propelling moments into attack mode. So I think that's where we're at. You know, it's go time.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because of a normal season. You know, we get around this time. It is playoff time. That it just excites me to be around the game and to know what time it is and how big of an impact these games have right now. So, yeah, I mean, Argos played a great game tonight, but at the end of the day, I'm I'm a Hamiltonian true to my heart, so Argos suck,
Speaking like Max Kernan from the Arkells on the broadcast tonight there. I don't know where in California, but I know in Los Angeles, California, it's 23 degrees, so I don't want to hear anything about you talking about cold, BG. Court, final thoughts here on this one.
Man, this team is got everything that they want right in front of them. It's going to be tough, like Luke said, but you're maturing. And, guys, there's no rookies in the playoffs, right? So after going through all this kind of stuff, you develop a certain thickness in your skin. There's guys in that locker room who've also been to the mountaintop, right? Guys who've played in Grey Cup games. So many that played recently, lost, have that bitter taste, know what it's like to think about that all offseason. And, that counts for something too. So look for them to bounce back. Don't look for this to be a team that – tucks their tail and goes running home. I think that, what they put on film wasn't the best, but the great thing is there's another game next week, and that's your opportunity in pro sports to show up and be the best player you could be.
Luke, a couple of coins in the effort jar tonight?
I think that I think you make the corrections and you don't let this sink into your identity. There was just little mistakes tonight that happened to football players and the football teams throughout a long season, and it came at a very, untimely moment in the season. But a win at home this coming week against Sask gives you your best shot to have a home playoff game the next week. And, a lot is still available to the Ticats with good play. But they will not get there by playing the way they played tonight. Yeah. This season they're in the playoffs, but this season will end week 1 of the playoffs if they play the way that they did tonight, and they have to make these slight corrections.
This was a goose egg. I mean, literally in the first half and for most of the third, Ticats laid a goose egg. Hey, BG, thanks for doing this. Appreciate it as always.
Appreciate you guys, man. It's been fun.
Absolutely enjoy the sun. Luke, thanks for sticking with us. Appreciate it.
Good stuff.
Court. Man, you're awesome.
It's been fun, Louie.
It's always fun when you join the show. Looking forward to Andy being back, but you can catch Courtney every game day alongside Bubba O'Neill on Tiger Cats game day. Court, thanks for doing this. On behalf of our technician, Michael Steyer, our audio editor, David Butko, our statistician, Greg Howdy, our features, Tracy Lynn, RJ Broadhead, Luke Tasker, and our executive producer, Dave Cadeau. I'm Louie B. Thanks for joining us here tonight. The final, the Ticats 12, the Argonauts 31 as Toronto clinches first in the East. Make sure to join us for our final broadcast of the regular season next week, next Saturday, when the Saskatchewan Roughriders come to town at Tim Hortons Field. It is a 4 p.m. kickoff. Andy and I on the air at 3 o'clock. Thanks for tuning in tonight on the Ticats Audio Network.